Los Angeles, 1979. The Santa Monica Civic Auditorium vibrated with a particular electricity that night, the unmistakable current that flows when an audience senses they're witnessing not just entertainment but transformation, not merely performance but emergence of something previously unseen. The Off-the-Wall tour represented Michael Jackson's first solo concerts following his departure from the Jackson 5, his declaration of artistic independence at the crucial age of 21. Though his album had already begun its climb up the charts, though Don't Stop Till You Get Enough had already insinuated itself into America's collective consciousness, Michael still existed in that liminal space between child star and adult artist, between familiar presence and revolutionary force. For the 3,000 fortunate enough to have secured tickets to this intimate venue, the anticipation bordered on reverence. The particular silence that falls when a crowd collectively holds its breath, waiting for revelation. Behind the modest stage, in a dressing room that would have been considered sparse by later standards, Michael Jackson stood perfectly still before a small mirror, eyes closed in what appeared to be meditation or prayer. At 21, his face still carried echoes of the child star who had captivated America since age 11, though more defined features had begun to emerge, creating the striking beauty that would help define his adult image. His slender frame was draped in what would soon become an iconic costume: black sequin jacket over the crisp white shirt, sparkling socks visible beneath high-water pants, loafers polished to mirror finish. The outfit represented both homage to predecessors like Fred Astaire and declaration of singular style, both respect for tradition and announcement of something new. In this suspended moment before performance, Michael appeared simultaneously vulnerable and powerful, the private person gathering energy to become the public phenomenon, the human being preparing to transform into something that transcended ordinary limitations. A gentle knock broke his concentration. 5 minutes, Michael, came the voice of his tour manager, professional but carrying undercurrent of the particular excitement that surrounded these first solo performances. Michael opened his eyes, met his own gaze in the mirror with intensity that suggested internal dialogue beyond standard pre-show focus. "Thank you," he replied, his speaking voice carrying that characteristic softness that always surprised those who knew him only through recordings or distance. In these quiet moments before transformation, the contrast between his gentle speaking presence and the electrifying performance energy he commanded seemed almost impossible reconciliation. Two aspects of self so distinct they might have belonged to entirely different people. The journey from dressing room to stage, 37 physical steps that Michael would later describe as crossing from one universe to another, represented internal transition more significant than mere physical movement. With each step, subtle shifts occurred, shoulders straightening incrementally, chin lifting slightly, energy gathering in his slender frame like electricity building before lightning strike. By the time he reached the wings, those accompanying him saw metamorphosis nearly complete, no longer the quiet, almost shy presence of the dressing room but the performer whose command of space and attention had already, even at this early stage in his solo career, begun to suggest the revolutionary force he would become. The opening notes of Don't Stop Till You Get Enough filled the auditorium, triggering response that suggested the song had already found its place as cultural touchstone despite its relatively recent release. Michael stood in darkness at stage center, a technique he had observed in James Brown performances, creating anticipation through momentary invisibility before explosive revelation. When the lights finally found him, when his form became visible to the eagerly waiting audience, the response was immediate and physical. A wall of sound containing not just excitement but recognition, not merely appreciation but affirmation of something audience members had unconsciously been waiting to witness. From the first movements, it was clear this wasn't merely continuation of Jackson 5 performance style adapted for solo presentation. This was emergence of entirely new vocabulary of movement, of expression, of relationship between music and physical embodiment. Though elements of his childhood performances remained, the perfectly timed spins, the precise footwork, they now existed within expanded range that incorporated influences from street dance, from classic film, from movement traditions across cultures synthesized into something that felt simultaneously familiar and entirely new. The audience response built with each song, with each perfectly executed sequence, enthusiasm transforming gradually into that particular energy that accompanies witnessing not just excellence but innovation. not merely skill but revelation. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories from music history. Moments when legendary careers hung in the balance, when vulnerability transformed into triumph, when artists showed us the extraordinary courage that sometimes accompanies ordinary human moments. These glimpses behind the carefully constructed images remind us that even our most iconic performers navigate the same physical realities and emotional challenges we all face, just on stages magnified by the spotlight of public attention. Midway through the show came the moment, the unexpected incident that would transform ordinary performance into legendary story passed through decades of music history. During an especially dynamic sequence in Working Day and Night, as Michael executed series of rapid spins leading into complex footwork that pushed boundaries of what seemed humanly possible, the unthinkable happened. His right foot, landing slightly off-center from intended position, made contact with small puddle of condensation that had formed beneath an overactive fog machine, invisible from his perspective, unnoticed by stagehands in the controlled chaos of live performance. Physics took inevitable course. His foot sliding forward with momentum too strong to correct. His perfectly balanced body suddenly betrayed by fundamental principles of friction and motion. The fall itself happened with strange grace, almost slow-motion quality that witnesses would later struggle to describe. Unlike awkward tumbles that typically characterize stage accidents, Michael's descent seemed almost choreographed in its fluidity, his body maintaining alignment even as it moved toward inevitable contact with the unforgiving stage floor. The impact, when it came, carried audible force. The solid thud of body meeting hardwood amplified by stage microphones, broadcasting the moment to every corner of the attentive auditorium. For perhaps 2 seconds, perfect stillness followed. Michael motionless on the stage, audience frozen in collective held breath, band members exchanging uncertain glances while maintaining the song's rhythm. In that suspended moment hung unspoken question that accompanies all such unexpected disruptions. Was this serious? Was he injured? Would the carefully constructed magic of performance be irreparably broken by this intrusion of physical reality? What happened next would be described differently by various witnesses, interpretation shaped by perspective and position within the venue. But the essential truth appears consistently across all accounts. A moment of potential disaster transformed into something entirely unexpected, something that would ultimately elevate rather than diminish the performance's impact. After those 2 seconds of stillness, Michael's body suddenly tensed in very specific pattern. Not the movement of someone preparing to rise from a fall, but deliberate contraction of muscles in sequence that suggested continuation rather than interruption. Still on the ground, he executed perfect body wave from shoulders through torso to legs, the rippling movement transforming prone position from accident into intentional choreographic choice. Then, with timing that seemed impossibly precise given the unplanned nature of the moment, he kicked both legs up and over in backward roll that carried his body through complete rotation, landing him upright on his feet in perfect synchronization with the music's next major beat. The audience response was immediate and overwhelming, shock giving way to recognition that they had just witnessed not embarrassing mishap but extraordinary adaptation. Not vulnerability exposed but vulnerability transformed. The applause contained not sympathy but heightened appreciation, understanding that what they had seen represented not merely physical skill but a particular kind of artistic courage. The ability to incorporate unexpected reality into creative expression without breaking its fundamental spell. Michael, now fully vertical and resuming the intended choreography without missing another beat, acknowledged the moment with subtle gesture. Slight smile that contained both human acknowledgement of what had happened and artistic confidence in how it had been handled. What elevated this incident beyond mere interesting anecdote, what transformed it from stage mishap into legendary performance moment, was what followed. Rather than continuing the planned choreography as if the fall had never happened, Michael made extraordinary artistic choice. He deliberately incorporated the fall's movement quality into the remainder of the song. The fluid roll that had returned him to his feet became repeated motif, integrated 3 more times at precise musical intervals. The body wave that had transformed stillness into motion became conscious element of choreography, rippling through his form at key moments in the song's bridge. What had begun as accident became not just recovered moment but catalyst for spontaneous creativity, for evolution of performance in real time. The audience, recognizing the significance of what they were witnessing, responded with increasingly vocal appreciation. This wasn't just acknowledgement of technical skill or recovery from potential embarrassment, but recognition of something more profound, the transformation of vulnerability into strength, of mistake into opportunity, of unexpected reality into enhanced artistic expression. By the song's conclusion, the energy in the auditorium had transformed from typical concert enthusiasm to something approaching revelatory witness. The particular quality that emerges when audience members recognize they are experiencing not just entertainment but meaningful demonstration of human creativity's adaptability, its capacity to transform limitation into expanded possibility. When the song ended, when Michael stood center stage acknowledging the thunderous response with the slight bow that would become his signature, something had shifted in the relationship between performer and audience. The carefully maintained barrier between planned presentation and authentic human experience had momentarily dissolved, allowing a glimpse of the extraordinary creative mind behind the meticulously crafted performance persona. What the audience had witnessed wasn't just recovery from mistake but window into artistic process itself. The real-time adaptation, incorporation, and transformation that represented Michael's creative genius in its purest form, unobscured by the layers of production and preparation that would increasingly separate him from direct audience connection as his career reached unprecedented heights. Backstage, after the show's conclusion, Michael's team noticed subtle but significant shift in his demeanor, a quality of energized reflection different from his usual post-performance focus. When his longtime manager congratulated him on the brilliant recovery, Michael's response revealed deeper recognition of what had transpired. "It wasn't recovery," he said quietly. "It was discovery." The distinction, subtle but profound, reflected his understanding that the moment's significance lay not in overcoming potential embarrassment but in revealing new creative possibility, not in disguising vulnerability but in transforming it into enhanced artistic expression. In the days that followed, as word of the performance spread through Los Angeles music circles, the incident acquired almost mythical quality. Those present spoke of it with reverence typically reserved for career-defining moments rather than single performance details. He didn't just save himself from falling. Bassist Greg Fillinganes would later recall in a rare interview. "He made the fall itself into art. I've never seen anything like it. This immediate creative processing, this transformation of accident into intention. It wasn't just physical skill. It was artistic alchemy happening in real time." For Michael personally, the moment would take on significance beyond its immediate context, beyond even its contribution to his developing performance style. In later years, in rare reflective conversations about his creative process, he would occasionally reference the Santa Monica Fall as fundamental lesson in his artistic evolution. "That night taught me something essential," he told choreographer Vincent Patterson during bad tour rehearsals. "When the question of handling potential performance mishaps arose, there are no mistakes on stage. There are only opportunities for something new to be born. The audience doesn't want perfection, they want truth. And sometimes truth comes from the unplanned moments." This philosophical approach, the integration of accident into intention, the transformation of vulnerability into strength, would become central not just to Michael's performance practice but to his broader artistic vision. The later innovations for which he became legendary, the anti-gravity lean in Smooth Criminal, the street dance elements incorporated into Bad, the revolutionary choreography of Thriller, all contained echoes of that fundamental recognition. That boundaries exist to be dissolved, that supposed limitations can become catalysts for expanded possibility, that what might initially appear as weakness can be transformed into unprecedented strength. Perhaps most significantly, the Santa Monica Fall represented earliest public glimpse of what would become Michael Jackson's defining characteristic as performer. Not just technical brilliance or innovative vision, but particular courage that allowed vulnerability to become visible without diminishing his fundamental power. Throughout his subsequent career, amid the increasingly elaborate productions and carefully controlled presentations, moments of similar quality would occasionally emerge. Brief windows when the human being behind the iconic image became momentarily visible, not through failure of performance discipline but through transformation of genuine humanity into enhanced artistic expression. For the 3,000 who witnessed that night at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, before Michael Jackson became Michael Jackson in all capital letters, before Thriller rewrote the rules of musical achievement, Before the iconic videos and revolutionary tours and unprecedented fame, the memory remains special precisely because of its timing. This glimpse of emerging genius still directly accessible, still navigating the boundary between extraordinary talent and the revolutionary force he would become. They had witnessed not just a brilliant recovery from potentially embarrassing moment, but preview of the fundamental artistic philosophy that would help define a performer whose influence would ultimately extend far beyond music into the broader cultural understanding of performance itself, of creative possibility, of the transformation of human vulnerability into transcendent artistic expression. If this video has touched you, if it has provided insight into how vulnerability can become catalyst for discovery rather than moment of limitation, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might find inspiration in this glimpse of how unexpected challenges sometimes reveal our greatest strengths. How mistakes can sometimes open doors to possibilities we hadn't previously imagined. And remember that behind every iconic performance, every seemingly superhuman display of artistic brilliance, exists a human being navigating the same physical realities and emotional challenges we all face, just with the courage to transform those fundamental vulnerabilities into opportunities for transcendent expression that connects us all through shared recognition of our common humanity. In a small, private collection of Michael Jackson memorabilia maintained by a former tour photographer, among artifacts far less valuable than the iconic costumes and instruments that occupy museum displays, sits a peculiar item that carries significance only to those who know its story. A small vial containing trace remains of stage fog fluid collected from the Santa Monica stage after that legendary performance. The photographer, who witnessed the moment from the orchestra pit, retrieved it as personal reminder of how seemingly insignificant elements sometimes catalyze transformative moments, how apparent obstacles can become unexpected openings to new possibility. Other people collected the obvious souvenirs, she explained when questioned about this unusual keepsake. The set lists, the program covers, eventually the gloves and hats and jackets. But this represents something more important. The moment when Michael showed us it's not about never falling. It's about what you create from the fall itself. That's what made him different. That's what made him revolutionary. Not perfection, but the ability to transform imperfection into something even more powerful, more authentic, more true.